Hello and welcome to Movies, a podcast about the act of cinema. I'm Hans, and I will be subbing in for LowRes on this episode. I'm a writer and filmmaker, and I live in San Jose, Costa Rica currently. Now, me and LowRes were supposed to record an episode on this Venom movie, but he ran into some technical difficulties where I believe that he had to buy a new microphone, or he had some technical issue in which he couldn't record. So he asked me to record my commentary regarding the film until he's able to resolve whatever that issue that is, and then we'll be able to put out, the actual episode when we go back and forth talking about the movie. Now, I'm not a host. I'm usually the one that just comes in to have quips or humorous commentary. So if this goes horribly wrong, you can point fingers at him. I've only done this once, where I record myself talking to nobody. I did listen to a couple of the episodes. I don't follow everything that LowRes does religiously. I find him to be kind of unbearable, kind of just a bad person. But I mean, we're all a little bit mad, so I figured I'd give him a chance and just listen to a couple of episodes that he's put out with this podcast series that he started sometime this year. Probably should have looked that up. I figured that it's mostly just him rambling alone, unless he's joined by a guest host or what would you call it? A friend, or he got the critical unbeliever to talk to him about Eyes Wide Shut, and I realized that they just rambled on, which is something that I do really well. I'm not used to doing it alone. But this should be fun. Should be fine. I don't usually talk to myself out loud. Most of the talk that I do to myself goes on in my head. Let me just talk a little bit about myself. I live in San Jose, Costa Rica, as I mentioned, and I did graduate from film school and a couple of years ago, and I think I've known LowRes for about 4 or 5 years, maybe. We collaborated in a couple of things. I am part of the LowRes Wonderbread Collective, if you want to call it that, in which I help with some of the writing, and I do appear in some sketches, mostly remotely because, since I'm in Costa Rica, it's kind of difficult for us to be in the same room, but I'm sure you've seen it. If you're a fan of the channel, you've seen me pop up here and there, and sometimes I help with the writing. Sometimes I help just giving, helping with jokes and helping with lines. And mostly, I believe that we recorded. Well, I don't believe this actually happened. We have recorded episodes together before. We did a politics podcast that wasn't very fun because of how everything turned out in the States. So. That was kind of a mess, and we have talked about movies before, and just live streams on YouTube, late night live streams where I'm mutually intoxicated. At this time, I'm currently going 8 days of sobriety, not because I'm trying to, be a better person or like better myself. I just feel like I'm at a point where, a month without any alcohol or drugs will do good for my system. I don't know why I picked October. A terrible month to do that because of all the, events that happen in this month. The movie that I will be talking about, I think I mentioned this before, but this has gone on for 5 minutes, so I'm not entirely sure as to what I've said. If I haven't mentioned it, the movie is Venom, directed by Ruben Fleischer. I believe that's how you pronounce it. It came out last week, and it's been panned by critics so far.
Hands! You do not want to do this, trust me.
Mask! Copy!
All right, have it your own way.
Mask!
Copy.
I've seen a couple of critics that called it boring, and if there's something that this movie is not, is boring. There's definitely a lot of action. The CGI is decent at times. I wouldn't say it's amazing. I wouldn't say it's, Avatar levels. I've never seen that movie, but, Avatar levels of CGI, but it looks pretty good. I feel like the action was moved pretty quickly so that you wouldn't have noticed whenever the CGI would be a little bit clunky, and it looked pretty smooth. I did enjoy the movie more than I thought I would because of the reviews. Now, this might be just half an hour of me shitting on movie reviewers because I feel like most of them come in with this very pretentious, very I'm an artist voice when they're not. If you're a movie reviewer, I mean, good for you. I mean, if you're able to make a living with that, that's great. But I do find that most movie reviewers are people that have never even tried to make a movie. They just feel like their opinion is more important than anyone else's just because they've seen a lot of movies. And then when I saw something like this, a movie like Venom, which it was mentioned that it was going to be a PG-13, so you knew right there that they couldn't curse. I believe there's one fuck in the movie. I believe he says something along the lines of "Let's fucking do this" or something, which is, I believe, the one fuck that they are able to say, and it's not in a sexual connotation, that they're able to use on a PG-13 movie. There's no blood in the movie. There's a lot of violence, and there's some scenes in which Venom eats a couple of heads, but there's no blood. So if you're coming in expecting, Logan or Deadpool, you'll be sorely mistaken and maybe disappointed. I came into this movie hoping that it would be an alternative to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which I'm a little bit sick of right now. I feel like those movies are pretty much the same thing over and over again, with the same structure, the same tone. The only movies that have changed that formula for Marvel have been Guardians of the Galaxy and Thor Ragnarok. But even those, they still have to fall into this universe that Marvel has created. Since there have been so many movies where, the villains have been boring and uninteresting in most of them, so there's not a lot of stakes, and it's a lot of introducing characters. So we spend most of the time, focusing on the character, and then the villain doesn't even have to do much. Now, this might be the one thing that the MCU movies and Venom have in common, mostly because, Venom is a character that not everyone is familiar with. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people know what Venom visually looks like, and they have seen people wearing shirts, and it's a cool looking character. But I don't think that a lot of people were familiar with the backstory of the character or how the character was created, or they might just see it as evil Spider-Man, which is what my dad called it. So that's what I'm going to be calling it now. So evil Spider-Man stars Tom Hardy and what's her name, Michelle Williams, who's not very good in the movie. You don't need her to be good, but she was very one tone. I feel like she was kind of boring. I didn't understand why the Eddie Brock or Tom Hardy character was so infatuated with this boring lawyer. She didn't really do much. At the end, she does help Venom, but I feel like that could have gone to maybe an actress that wasn't as well known and maybe had a little bit more charisma, a little bit more personality. That's one of the few issues that I have with the movie. Now, again, I came into this movie hoping to find an alternative to the MCU movies. Don't want to see 5 movies a year where they're pretty much the same thing. And I figured if this was, half as fun as those silly Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, I'll be satisfied. And that's pretty much what I got. You have a story that feels a little bit rushed at times, but it's understandable because, I mean, even though it runs 1 hour and 52 minutes, the movie runs by. You don't really feel bored. You don't really feel like it's dragging. There's moments in which, the story moves forward really quickly, but that's what happens when, you don't want to make a 3-hour epic and you're trying to introduce a new character. Eddie Brock is on screen for about, 40 minutes, I'd say, before we see Venom and him on at the same time, or joined on the screen. And I think at least my favorite part about the movie, and I think the one thing that most critics can't complain about, is that Tom Hardy, actually they have complained about. A lot of people are saying that Tom Hardy hammed it up and that he overacted, but I find it very difficult that when you put it into perspective, this is a movie about a character that can grow in size and pretty much do any shape he wants because of this symbiote thing. And a lot of people is either they were hoping for a grounded version of this story. Not entirely sure how you could have done that. I don't know if, give Christopher Nolan the Venom franchise and see what he does with it. That probably would have been a good thing, I don't think. I don't know if a grounded Venom would be as fun as this was, and I think it was exactly what it needed to be. It was loud. It was fun. It had a lot of action. It had some jokes that worked for me. I feel like the humor was there. It wasn't laugh out loud, but which superhero movies laugh out loud? I mean, besides the Deadpool, I guess the first one. The second one's pretty much the same as the first one. Wish they could have done something different with that one. Yeah, I think the only superhero movie that I've laughed out loud was Deadpool. So I don't understand people complaining about the tone of the movie, people complaining about the humor. I do understand that because of the visual of the character, because of what the character looks like, a lot of people expected this violent, this, R-rated light movie. But I think it leaves the door open to sequels, especially with the spoiler or the post-credit scene in which we see what everyone wanted to see, or the character that everyone wanted to see. Now, when I was at the movie theater, I did hear a couple of people complaining that they wanted to see that character in the movie, but it would be better. Well, might as well just say spoiler alert here. Carnage is in the post-credit scene, and a lot of people are complaining that they wanted to see this character in the movie, but that's like blowing your load too quickly. That's a premature ejaculation in movie terms, I think, because you needed most of the movie to introduce the Venom character and just to get to know Eddie Brock and to relate to the character and care for the character. And I feel like Carnage would. Carnage, am I saying that correctly? Carnage, whatever. I speak Spanish most of the day, so please accept my apologies when it comes to mispronouncing words. But I feel like Carnage would have needed more screen time and it would have made this movie, I don't know, 2.5 hours, 3 hours, till everyone gets hemorrhoids at the cinema. It's just not what this should have been. Now, the character of Riot, again, this movie suffered from having a not very interesting villain. I mean, I think while Riz Ahmed, I can't think of the character's name right now, but when he was just being regular human, when he was just being an evil billionaire, a very Elon Musk-like character, he was interesting, and as soon as Riot showed up, and as soon as he became this other symbiote, that kind of dragged on a little bit, and it felt a little bit rushed. But again, that's just what happens with these movies, in which you don't really have a lot of time to introduce a villain and present him properly for you to be afraid of them, or for you to see them as a real threat. The final fight, it's really cool visually. It ends kind of suddenly, and I kind of wish that maybe the fight would have been a little bit longer. Maybe the fight would have upped the stakes a little bit, because I do feel like it ended pretty quickly. But besides that, I did have a lot of fun, and that's pretty much what I'm looking for in movies now. If I want to go into a movie and feel emotional, or get a message and learn something, I don't think I would go to a superhero movie for that, and I think that's one of the biggest issues with this movie, or at least with movie reviewers, that I'm not entirely sure what the fuck they wanted to see, or what the fuck they were expecting after seeing that trailer, after hearing that it was going to be a PG-13 movie. PG-13 movie. And at least for myself, I got everything I wanted. I've seen it twice. I saw it once with a couple of friends, and then I took my girlfriend and my brother to see it, and they all enjoyed it. So it's not just me. I did notice that on the Rotten Tomatoes score, the movie does have a pretty horrible score from critics. But if you look at what the people are saying, that grade is a lot more favorable. Now, right now, it's 30% tomatometer, and then audience score is 89%. So that pretty much tells you everything you need to know about this movie. Now, if you're a pretentious critic, like all of these old people that I'm looking at over here, quote-unquote top critics from for example, we got Richard Roper, right, saying that it's a tone-deaf, uneven, and maddening dumb clunker that never settles on an identity all the way to the closing credits. He gave it a 1.5 stars. Now, again, I don't know what kind of movie people were coming to see. Also, can we not call these people top critic? What the fuck is a top critic? Just sit there, watch the movie, criticize it, fine, but a top critic? So is his opinion more important than anyone else's opinion then? That's fucking ridiculous, I'm sorry. You got this fucking 60-year-old man coming to see a superhero movie that's just loud and fun and there's action in it. And he's, over here using his words and trying to, sound very smart while criticizing a movie about, a man, a jock, a motorcycle cool guy getting an alien attached to his body. And it makes him grow really big eyes and 3,000 teeth that are about, 7 inches long. And he's able to mold his body in different shapes. And he's able to kill people and eat their heads. And, I don't know. I just find it ridiculous that you're sending all of this out of touch, older reviewers to a movie like this, when this is just supposed to be fun. Now, the same thing happened with, the Ninja Turtles movies. I'm not saying they're great movies. I'm just saying they're fun. And a lot of the time, people want to just forget about the problems, come to the movies, and enjoy, an hour and a half, 2 hours of just fun. And this is what this is. Now, there's, again, I said I was going to go through a couple of reviews, or at least snippets from reviews. So here's another one. Kate Gardner from the Mary Sue. That Mary Sue sounds like a film-related website. Kate Gardner sounds like someone that should be listened to. And then she says, is it a comedy? Is it an action film? I don't think this lady has ever seen an action comedy, apparently. I don't think this lady has seen, body cop movie. How about a Lethal Weapon? Has this lady seen any of the Lethal Weapon? Has she seen Rush Hour? I wonder what those reviews were like. Is it a comedy? Is it an action film? Is Jackie Chan actually Chinese? Is Chris Tucker black? She goes on saying, makes no pretense of being anything more than a superhero film, which is what you should come in for. This is a superhero film. Can we stop trying to find more meaning into a fucking superhero movie? And yes, there are some comic books that deal with the real issues, that deal with war. There's Captain America punching Hitler. There's Luke Cage and racism in the 70s, and you have a gay Green Lantern now. So I mean, comic books can deal with real life issues, and they have for since its inception. But this is just a superhero movie. Why would you come into a Venom movie expecting more than a superhero film where you can just eat popcorn and laugh with people that you... Kate, do you have any friends that you can enjoy this with? Maybe this movie is not for you, Kate. I believe that if you can't figure out if this movie is a comedy or an action film, or if you can't figure out that, a movie can be a comedy and an action film at the same time, maybe this is not the... Maybe a movie reviewer is not the job that you should have. Maybe you should, review Home and Garden Television. Go review the new Maury episode, or go review Jerry Springer. Find your drama there. This is a superhero movie, again, about a ridiculous superhero that is violent, that kills people. I mean, look at that fucking trailer. What the fuck did you people expect? I don't understand. The only thing that you had to do to enjoy this movie was come in not expecting anything. And I know that, when people say you need to turn your brain off to enjoy this, that's kind of bullshit. I mean, it's fine if you do, because you might enjoy more things, but this is just a fun, dumb popcorn movie. I kind of wish that, the Transformers movies were like this. I'm hoping we don't get fucking 10 Venom movies unless, they progress the story correctly, or I don't know if PG-13 was the best option. I did enjoy it, but I think it would have benefited from having an R rating, just so that we could see some blood and a little bit of more adult humor, adult language. But at the same time, it could have easily fallen into the Deathpool trap where, we're just going to make obscene jokes because that's funny. And let's just talk about farts and vaginas and titties and LOLs all around. And I think this movie played with comedy pretty well and was able to implement it with the action. Also, Jenny Slate is in it, and I love Jenny Slate. So you can all, that's another thing that I enjoyed with this movie, even though she's, you know what happens to her if you've seen this. Now, let's see. Matthew Licona from the San Diego Reader. He looks very serious in his movie, and he looks like he's got a perm, so he means business. It says, the Venom symbiote requires a perfect match to bond with his host. Otherwise, the host is doomed. The Venom movie plays like a midnight horror that has invaded a superhero movie, and while there are some laughs to be had, LAFFS, it's far from a perfect match. He gave it a 0 out of 5. Now, I don't know about you. I don't have a star rating that I use to criticize the movies that I watch. I feel like that's a little bit pretentious, and I do understand that it's helpful when it comes to, people knowing what your opinion is regarding a film, but I don't think I would ever, or it would have to be something like The Room or like Troll 2. I wouldn't give those a 0 because you have fun watching them. They're fucking terrible. They're ridiculous movies with horrendous scripts and, cinematography is shit. And the acting is horrible, but at least you're having fun with it. So it wouldn't be a 0. Maybe it would have been a 2 or even a 3, because at least you're laughing. At least you're seeing something that you're not used to seeing, something so horrible that, it's fun. Now, given a 0, that just shows how pretentious this Matthew Licona person is. Because saying that it plays like a midnight horror that has invaded a superhero movie, I don't see any horror in this movie. I don't know if I'm the only one that didn't get any type of horror feel from this movie. This is just a superhero movie. The fact that it's a character that's all black doesn't make it horror. The fact that it's a character that has a lot of teeth does not make it horror. I wonder if Matthew has ever seen a horror movie, because this is not a horror movie at all. This is just a superhero movie. So this is another reviewer that's a top critic from Rotten Tomatoes, showing how much of a joke this website is. Now, let's see. Chris Klimek from NPR. Now, NPR. When you're thinking about, that's a fun popcorn movie, NPR sounds like, the first choice of, critics that you would go to, right? Because they usually have very non-pretentious opinions, right? Let's see what Chris Klimek, that's a shitty name, and my name is shitty as fucking shitty last name. He says, quote, it turns out Venom isn't much different than the alien who starred in NBC's 1980s sitcom Alf, a pushy boar motivated mostly by his next snack. Venom eats in the movie, and one of the side effects that Eddie Brock has after having the Venom or the symbiote on him is that he's hungry. So it is mentioned a couple of times that the character is hungry, but that's not the character's motivation. Now, I'm wondering if Chris actually saw the movie, because yes, the Eddie gets hungry, but that's not what drives the movie. So Chris, shut the fuck up. Go back to watching The Artist 2,000 times and talking about how brilliant it is, or go back to being monotone and talk about how the new Lena Dunham film, it's a hit because it has a lot of scenes of just people talking with the camera static, not moving at all, and it's just improvised, and that's Now that's real art. Now we have Rafer Guzman over here from Newsday. He says, Venom could be Marvel's version of the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Or Santa Claus Conquers the Martians, a camp classic worth mocking again and again. Now, when it comes to mocking a film from someone like Rafer Guzman, who I'm sure has made lots of successful movies that have made $80 million. Now, wait, before I move on to what I'm about to say, I do realize that just because a movie makes a lot of money doesn't mean that it's good. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that it really takes a lot of balls, a lot of courage. You have to be a real pretentious person to say that it's a movie that is worth mocking again and again. I don't know what Rafer's type of movies are, but that just reeks of pretentiousness. That reeks of I'm better than anyone else. As a movie critic, as a person that should be unbiased, as a person that should come into the movie without any preconceived ideas, this just, and I'm not surprised, Rafer Guzman, he gave it a 0.5 out of 4. Again, I don't agree. I feel like this movie worked in many levels. I feel like this movie worked better than most Marvel movies that have come out lately. Because at least it doesn't have to fit into a world. It doesn't have to fit a box that has been previously been established already. It doesn't have to follow the same tone, the same 3 acts, the same structure that the universe that it's trying to fit in. Now, excuse me for a second. I don't think I ever had to talk for so long without a break, so I had to take a little bit of sip of water. But I think that's the biggest problem. Now, if you're someone that reads reviews before deciding if you want to see a movie or not, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, Rotten Tomatoes is a perfect example of how out of touch movie reviewers are. And after looking at, the lovely photos, the beautiful, beautiful photos that this over 40 years old movie reviewers have, and I'm being very nice when I say 40. I just don't think that you should be basing your decisions on, what a critic thinks, especially about a movie like this. This is not a movie that should be overly studied. This is not a movie that, they're going to create a college course to study it. This is just a fun movie. This is just a fun superhero popcorn movie, which is what superheroes movies should be. Tom Hardy looked like he was having a lot of fun during this movie. You can tell that he cares about the character. You can tell that he worked on this Eddie Brock character, and he has a lot of fun, and the audience has a lot of fun with it. And I know because I was at the movie theater with a full crowd, and they were laughing, and they were having fun with the movie. I don't understand what these movie reviewers were expecting. Let's see. John Oleksinski from the New York Post says, Venom? More like cyanide. My asshole just retracted because I'm so uncomfortable at that attempt of a joke, at that attempt of a clever line. John Oleksinski, go fuck your mother. That is horrendous. And you gave the movie a 1 out of 4 stars. I give that joke 0 stars. You suck. Stop reviewing these type of movies because they're not for you. You are not the intended audience. You're coming in with preconceived ideas. You're coming in with this pretentiousness that movie reviewers, for whatever reason, have. I'm sorry. You're not filmmakers unless you make a movie, or unless you've ever made a movie. You're not a filmmaker. You don't know everything that comes into making a movie like this. And the fact that they have the gall to just criticize it like that, it's just... All right. And again, I'm not defending the movie. I'm not saying this is fucking Citizen Kane. It's just have a little bit of fun. Why do you have to grade every movie the same way? You can't put Venom in the same category as, Philadelphia. You can't come in with the same state of mind and criticize both of them using the same scale, because they're completely different movies. You have to put them in different categories. One of them is mindless fun. The other one's a movie about AIDS in which Tom Hanks dies or some shit. I don't remember. That movie was boring. It was good, but it was boring. Why can a movie like Venom be properly dirty? Sorry, Joshua Rothkopf said, why can't the movie make Venom properly dirty? PG-13 rating seriously hurts. Now, this is something that I agree with a little bit. As I mentioned before, I think an R-rated movie would have worked better with mature audiences, but this is just the way that they decided to introduce the character, and I think that PG-13 worked pretty well. Now, I do need to close this up because I feel like I'm rambling, and again, we're going to be recording an actual episode. But I just saw another horrible joke by Justin Chang from the Los Angeles Times in which he says, Venom feels like pretty weak poison. Okay, now, I'm not a comedian. I tried stand-up comedy once, or I was going to try stand-up comedy once, but I froze because I have a stage fright. But I do realize that, you know, if you're not funny, maybe stop trying to be funny, Justin. Venom feels like pretty weak poison. Is you know, what you think would go on a billboard or what you think would go on an ad. And you know what? Just knowing how fucking advertisement works and how lame most advertising companies are, they probably would use this. If let's say this was positive and it was Venom feels like pretty strong poison, they would probably use it. But this is horrendous, and I do need critics, these pretentious critics. I'm an art house reviewer, art house movie reviewer. This Lars von Trier is my god, people. To stop trying to be funny because you're not. And this is just cringy and horrendous. Justin Chang, that joke is worse than your hairline. That's coming from me, who's been balding for like the past 10 years. Okay, so I think I'm just going to close this up because I feel like I've been rambling for 33 minutes actually, and actually almost 34. And I just don't want to start repeating myself, even though I'm sure I probably have already. So I'm just going to leave it at this. Now, again, there's going to be an actual episode, but I'll just leave this one here. I'm just going to end it now, and if you would like to follow me, I do have a Twitter. It's Hansican, which is spelled... It's Hansican, that's Hansican. Or Instagram is Hansican2. It's HANSICANDOS. If you want to just see, you know, stuff that I post, or if you want to, you know, just follow me and talk to me, I'm open to talking to anyone, and I like to have fun on the internet. I like to make fun of things, and anyway, this is an emergency movies podcast episode. I've been your host, Hans. It's really weird when you have a name like this that could be pronounced in very difficult and very different ways, because I don't really talk to myself in the third person. So every time someone asks me about my name, I feel like I say it differently every time. I don't know why I'm closing the episode with this boring ramble. But anyway, we'll be back. I'm not entirely sure when. I think we might be recording it at the end of this week. But thank you for listening. If you made it this far, it's not something I would do. So I thank you. And again, if you have anything to say, if you have any comments, if you feel like I'm completely wrong, and you have something that you feel could be addressed on the actual episode of this of Venom, get at me. Hansican on Twitter, HANSICAN, and start a conversation. I'm open to talking to any of you guys, and thank you for listening.